John Gazelius.
Close enough.
All right, and we're doing an oral history interview, part of the Memories of the Missile Field Project.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, to start at the very beginning, when were you born and where were you born, and what's your full name?
Well, my name is John Gazelius. When I was on crew, it was Lieutenant G. I was born in 1956 in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
I was an ROTC guy at the University of California at Berkeley. And after I graduated, they made me lieutenant and sent me here.
All right. What about your parents? What were their names?
Dad was his first name was Lawrence. My mother was Jane. My dad was born in Ohio and came to California in the Depression.
Okay.
Mom grew up in Torrance, California.
Okay. And what were their backgrounds or careers?
My dad was a salesman.
Okay.
He sold cement. Comes in a sack, mix it with water, it's liquid rock. And Mom was a housewife in Orange, California, with 2 kids and a cat, and doing whatever moms did then.
So, what in their backgrounds, or what in your background, made you interested in the Air Force when you were a very young man and looking at opportunities after high school?
Well, the reason why I looked, not necessarily at the Air Force, but why I looked at the Armed Forces, I'm a first-generation high school grad. And I knew I wanted to go to college, and although Mom and Dad had mentioned that they could afford college, I knew what it cost, and I knew better, and I knew that I needed some financial aid. And unlike today, there was not a lot of free money around. You either had to have stellar academics or be exceedingly poor, and I did not fit into either category. So I was going to have to find another way of getting college paid for. And ROTC provided an avenue to do that. I could get tuition paid for, I'd get a little bit of money to help defray my living expenses. And the good news was that they would cover it at really whatever school I wanted to go to. I'm a native Californian, and I wanted to study political science in college. And if you could imagine growing up in an exceedingly conservative part of California, and there are some. After all, Richard Nixon was from Orange County. You grow up in a very conservative part of the state, and you want to study political science, and it's the late 60s, what better place to go than Berkeley? And ROTC provided an opportunity to do that. I originally started off in the Navy ROTC program, but there had been a change the summer after I graduated from high school and before I started college that required the Navy students, if they weren't going to be engineers, they had to take math and chemistry and physics for engineers. And those were all year-long classes at Cal, and they were all full-time classes, a full class load. And I was going to be a political science major. It did not work out. I got through my freshman year, and I wasn't having academic problems in the political science classes, but in math and physics and chem, it was not pretty. My roommate, my sophomore year, was the corps commander of the Air Force ROTC program at Cal. And I had known him my freshman year because we had been on the same floor of the dorm. And Frank knew that I was having problems with the math and the physics and the chem, and he was saying if you were in the Air Force, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Well, about that time, the Air Force was having the post-Vietnam drawdown, and they had cadets who were going to be graduating from Berkeley and from the ROTC program that were supposed to be pilots, and they didn't have airplanes for them. So they were letting these guys go without a service commitment. Orders at Berkeley, thank you very much, we don't need you. But these are guys who wanted to fly. Meanwhile, with the Navy, they had new airplanes coming online with the F-14 and other things in the inventory. They wanted pilots, but because of their academic standards, so many people in the pipeline were flunking out, they weren't going to be able to fill their quotas. And Frank did something which I will say was a very Air Force way of looking at it. There were 3 people who were seniors each of which had a year's worth of ROTC money left in their account. I was starting my sophomore year. I had 3 years of money, basically, that I was entitled to. I'm not very good at math, but 1 plus 1 plus 1 equaled 3. So it was a financial wash. And I don't know who talked to whom. I don't know how it was done. But I wound up as an Air Force ROTC scholarship guy, effectively taking my Navy money with me. And the Navy got 3 guys who wanted to be pilots and couldn't be with the Air Force. But they got cockpits with the Navy. So everybody was fine, and that's how I wound up in the Air Force.
Okay.
And I think I got the better deal.
Okay. Excellent. That's excellent. What about, what year did you graduate?
1978.
Okay, 78. And at what part, or when did you find out that you were going to be on missile crew, or how did that selection process go? Did you have a say in it?
I didn't have a say in it.
Okay.
You know, you are going to be a missileer.
Okay.
And the way it was described to me, I knew that we had missiles here, and they also said, and the missile guys are also the ones that work in Houston. Well, I could handle mission control. Well, I suppose I had a mission. And I suppose I was in control, but not exactly what I was thinking.
Right, a little bit different. What did, as a young Californian, what did you think when you heard that they were sending you off to Grand Forks, North Dakota?
Well, I got a call one day, and they said, or somebody called the ROTC unit at Berkeley, and the secretary got a hold of me, and they said, John, you have to call Captain Shade down at Randolph. And he was the guy who handled missile assignments. And I went into the office and I called him. He said, I've got good news and I have bad news. The good news is you can have your base of choice. The bad news is your choices are Minot and Grand Forks. Take your pick. And I knew that the university was here in Grand Forks, which is how I wound up at Grand Forks in the 321st.
So you already had your sights on pursuing another degree?
A master's degree, yes.
Right. Excellent. And that at the time, did they have the Minuteman, was it the Minuteman
Yes.
education program?
Yes,
is that right?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So that obviously was an incentive as well, or
Yes, absolutely.
some icing on the cake,
Absolutely.
maybe, or something like that?
It was a tremendous incentive to not try and do something else. I knew I wanted an MBA, and this was a way to make it happen very efficiently.
And how did that program work? Did they pay everything, all of your master's degree at any university that you wanted?
No,
or
only at UND.
Okay.
Only at UND. The Air Force made arrangements with whatever the local university was that could offer an MBA.
Okay.
And they made arrangements to teach the classes out on base with UND instructors. And they covered the expenses, and they scheduled your alerts around your classes. So when you looked at your schedule, you would find your alert days, you'd find your class days, and then the training days. And if you had a day off, that's because they couldn't find anything else to put in there.
So there's a good deal of, community collaboration, you could say, and goodwill feelings between the base and the university.
Absolutely, and there still is.
To make that happen.
And there still is, yes.
Right.
And from my standpoint, I belong to the UND Alumni Association.
Okay.
When I was here, I was the chapter advisor for my college fraternity. They have a chapter on campus. And what brought me to North Dakota this weekend was to be their speaker tonight at dinner.
Oh.
I'm still in contact with the kids in the fraternity at UND. And they are having their 85th anniversary, and they wanted me to come up here and be the dinner speaker.
Okay.
So I packed a bag and came from California, where it's 80 degrees right now, to Grand Forks, where it's 12.
Very generous of you.
Yeah, not like that. And what's interesting, another missileer by the name of Art Hebler that followed me in the 446th also was a member of Lambda Chi Alpha and served as their chapter advisor. And the guy who preceded me as chapter advisor was a guy named Mark Beckham, and he was here in the 48th. So there has always been, I think, a very good relationship between our wing, or the base, and the university.
Okay. Did that help you as a young man, get enmeshed in the local culture,
Absolutely.
the local community?
Absolutely. absolutely.
Open a lot of doors, meet different people.
Certainly meeting different people. For example, I had never been on a farm until I came up here, and I had the opportunity to go and spend weekends once in a while with the guys from the fraternity and go home with them and meet their parents and see a farm. I dated a girl for a while up here that I had met through some of the guys at the university. So it was, yeah, clearly the university and the town was an integral part of my being here.
Huh. Did you live on base or in the
Both.
In the town?
Both. I lived in the queue for a while on Pennsylvania Circle, otherwise known as Sin Circle. I think there really was very little sinning on Sin Circle, but we tried. And I lived downtown for a while.
All right, that's good stuff. And do you still have contact with any of those civilian, the young civilians that you hung out with at the
absolutely.
time?
I'll be having dinner tonight with some undergraduates who now clearly they're graduated, they're married, they have kids.
Oh, okay.
And they'll all be in their late 40s, maybe as old as 50. But these are people I'm still in contact with.
Yeah.
Up until he died, the university president was a guy named Tom Clifford. And when Dr. Clifford would come out to California, for whatever reason, he remembered my name. And when the University of North Dakota would have an alumni function in Southern California, I would go. And Dr. Clifford would say, "John, how are you?" So yeah, it was very much a part of it. And
Right.
I'm not connected to North Dakota now. I don't live here.
Right.
I haven't been in the state in probably 5 or 6 years, but it's still here. I get the alumni newsletter. I pay attention to what the school is doing. I even send them money.
And I take it you didn't marry your girl. You
No.
said it was just a little.
No,
it didn't
I dated her
last
for a
real
while
long.
here, and it was it was nice. But I think she wanted to stay in North Dakota, and I'm a native Californian, and I quite honestly got tired of snow.
Right. Yeah. 'Cause there's more than one story of guys coming from out of state and now they still live here because they
Yes.
ended up marrying a.
Yeah, I'm not one of them,
their-
but it was.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, she was from I think Langdon.
Okay.
Way
Yeah,
out
up by Alpha.
Out by Alpha, yes,
Yeah.
way out on the prairie.
Excellent. And what about that? Well, traveling out to Alert. Do you remember times when you would stop at the local grocery store?
Absolutely. The Park River Bakery.
The Park River Bakery.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did you get there? Do you remember?
I'd get a couple of cinnamon twists and a cup of coffee. Sometimes more than that, depending on how hungry I was. But I'd get 2 or 3, and I'd nibble on one on my way out to Charlie, and I'd have a couple in my sack, and
Okay.
we'd nibble on. But yeah, our coffee stop in my squadron was the Park River Bakery going out,
Okay.
and it was the Park River Dairy Queen coming in.
Do you know if either? I have no idea. Do you know?
Welch's Bakery. It's called Welch's Bakery, and it's still in Park River.
It's still okay. Excellent.
I don't know if the Dairy Queen is there, but it's my understanding that the PRB is still there.
Excellent. All right. Well, kind of jumping back then, where did you head off after you graduated ROTC? Where did they send you for training?
Missile school is at Vandenberg.
Okay.
I was commissioned in June. I spent the summer working for the Boy Scouts. Went to missile school in October. Graduated from missile school, I don't know, January, February '79, and blasted up here.
Okay. And what were your initial impressions of your new assignment, your new base?
I came in a couple of days after a snowstorm and thought, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I had just things I had anticipated. I had some stuff in the back of my car, and I brought a case of wine up here and left it in the car. Bad move. I did not know wine could freeze.
You found
It does. And when it does, it breaks the bottles.
That's disappointing, considering there was probably some good California
It was some
wine.
good California wine, and the worst thing is, my car smelled like a winery until I got rid of it. I never could get it out.
Do you remember what your kind of emotions or thoughts were as, here I am, what you were, 22, 23
23,
maybe? Here I am, I'm about to assume control over a flight of 10 nuclear missiles. Was that something that you could get your head around?
It really didn't strike me until I went on alert, my first alert with Mark Alsdorf. And I was sitting at the deputy's console, which is behind you. He said, I'm going to bed, good night. And he wandered around the corner and went to bed. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, now what? Because, as you know, because you're a missileer, if you take a trainer ride, when things get quiet, it's because you've missed something or you've made a mistake. And I sat there for about 10 minutes. I went back and got a cup of coffee, and I'm thinking, okay, when's the next event? And about 20 minutes later, the phone rang. And the FSC, Flight Security Controller, said, we want to send the guys out to go look at Echo, whatever it was, to go out and look at a missile. Can they go? Okay. Which, in retrospect, I did hundreds of times over the next 200 or 300 alerts. But it was that first night when it got very quiet. You know, and you waited for the phone to ring, or we got an outer zone alarm. A rabbit ran across the launcher. Sarge, I've got to sit 7 out at wherever it was. And he said, okay. Now what? And you're waiting, and it became exceedingly routine. But your first alert, you're like, what am I doing here? You know, and it's just, that was odd.
Mm-hmm.
That was odd. And it took a month, maybe a month and a half, before it felt comfortable. I didn't feel uncomfortable or afraid. It was just odd.